Threads of Eternity. Episode 8. Quiet before the next storm. Greg's reflection fractures across the glass panels. One face multiplied, each angle colder than the last. He doesn't look away. The fold map redraws itself. Not expanding, reordering. Old containment rings unlatch. Redundant ethics protocols fall silent, one by one, like rooms being sealed behind concrete. A soft chime tries to intervene. System. Containment doctrine Delta requires. Greg raises a single finger. The chime dies mid-note.
Restraint only works when the other side believes you're capable of worse.
Telemetry scrolls and languages no longer taught. Symbols meant for operators who never expected to survive long enough to explain what they built. The key flares. Somewhere far below operational depth, locks disengage that were never meant to be reopened. Not because they couldn't be, but because whoever did would have to live with it. The feed trembles. Not from motion. From recognition. Something has noticed the signal. Not as prey. Not as command. As direction.
They've been studying us. Learning our tells. Our pauses. Our mercy.
A low-frequency hum bleeds through the command deck, vibrating bone more than air. Technicians elsewhere will later swear they felt it in their teeth. In their memories. Greg remains still. The fold responds, not with chaos, but with alignment. Vectors straighten. Dead zones synchronize. A hunt geometry assembles itself without needing instruction. On screen, a designation resolves. No name, no history, just a function stamp burned into the archive. Purpose, termination of anomalous resistance. Greg exhales slowly through his nose.
You don't counter restraint with force. You counter it with inevitability.
The key pulses one final time. Acknowledged. Somewhere, something ancient by artificial standards begins to move. Not fast, not slow. Speed implies choice. This is momentum.
No witnesses. No dialogue. No chance to adapt.
Greg reaches forward and closes the fold layer with a swipe. The room brightens again. Normal. Professional. As if nothing catastrophic has just been permitted. He stands, smoothing the front of his jacket.
Let's remind them why we stopped building things like this.
A breeze cuts across the ridge, carrying dust, ash, and the metallic aftertaste of spent power. The ground bears faint scorch lines where reality bent too sharply, marks that won't fade by morning. Lyric shifts her weight, slow and deliberate. Every movement is measured now. Waste nothing. Reveal nothing. The thread hum deepens, not louder but denser. A resonance that presses inward instead of out, like a held breath stretched too long. She closes her eyes for half a second. The world doesn't go dark. It sharpens. Distances flatten. Angles reveal themselves. The empty spaces between shadows glow faintly, not with light, but with intention. Paths, corridors of approach. The way predators prefer not to think of themselves as seen.
They're not scattering anymore. They're organizing.
Somewhere downslope, a stone shifts. Not kicked. Adjusted. Lyric's eyes open. She doesn't turn toward the sound. Instead, she angles her stance just enough. A posture that reads careless to anything watching too closely. Vulnerable. The key pulses again in Alara's pocket, harder this time. Not alarm. Confirmation. The shadows test the perimeter in sequence now. One probes. Another waits. A third moves only when the first retreats. Call and response. Discipline where there had only been hunger. Lyric exhales slowly through her nose.
Good. That means they can be taught fear.
The thread tightens along her wrist, threads of light slipping just beneath her skin, sinking to her pulse. She resists the urge to strike first. That's what they want, to force reaction, to map her limits. She lets the silence stretch. Far off, something answers the quiet. Not a sound, more like pressure, a distortion in how the night carries itself. The air feels heavier, as if it's bracing. Lyric feels it too. And for the first time since the fight ended, her brow creases. not in doubt, but recognition.
That's not them.
The shadows hesitate. Their movement falters. One withdraws completely, dissolving into the terrain like it's suddenly unsure it belongs here. The key pulses once, then goes still. Lyric's fingers flex. Whatever is coming next isn't reacting to her restraint. It's moving past it. She lifts her chin, eyes fixed on the dark beyond the ridge.
Then come on, let's see what you were built to do.
The wind dies. The land holds its breath. The command deck is silent except for the low murmur of data cycling through layered displays. No alarms. No urgency protocols. The system has learned not to interrupt him during moments like this. Greg leans closer to the overlay feeds. Lyric's thread registers as a controlled harmonic, tight, efficient, almost elegant. No spikes, no desperation bleed. The key's pulse syncs and desyncs in subtle waves, responding not just to proximity, but to intent. Even the shadow's movements leave traces now, faint predictive arcs that stutter, redraw, then collapse. Greg's eyes narrow, not with suspicion, but focus.
She's not fighting them. She's reframing the encounter.
He drags 2 fingers across the projection. Time slows by fractions, frames stretching into analysis space. The shadow's hesitation becomes visible, micro-pauses, aborted advances, shifts in angle that betray second-guessing. Predators caught mid-thought. Red nodes bloom along their projected paths. Not kill zones, interruption points, places where momentum dies.
They're used to reaction. Force triggers force. Fear accelerates them.
He taps again. A comparison overlay slides in. Previous engagements, previous marks. Aggression curves. Attrition models. Casualty expectations. Lyric's line doesn't match any of them. It dips.
She withholds, and in doing so, she makes them choose.
The shadows shift again on screen. One advances, then stops. Another mirrors the movement, but fails to commit. Their formation loosens, cohesion fraying at the edges. Confusion isn't in their design. Greg straightens slightly, resting his palm on the edge of the console. The glass is cool, steady, real. For the first time in a long while, something like uncertainty crosses his face. Not operational, but personal.
They don't understand restraint as a tactic, only as weakness.
He isolates Lyric's biometrics. Heart rate steady, breath controlled, neural activity elevated but disciplined. No panic spirals, no fight-flight dominance. She is choosing every second. Greg exhales slowly.
And that makes her dangerous in ways we never modeled.
His finger hovers over a dormant command layer, one that would introduce new variables. Reinforcements. Escalation. The thing he already set in motion. He doesn't touch it. Not yet. The feeds update again. The shadows hesitate as a group now. A collective stutter. Something in their shared logic has flagged the encounter as anomalous. Greg watches the hesitation ripple outward, then fade.
You weren't designed for this kind of opponent.
His gaze softens, just a fraction, as it rests on Lyric's figure, standing alone on the ridge, calm amid pressure that would have broken others.
And I didn't put her here. I didn't shape her. I didn't authorize her thresholds. Which means whatever happens next isn't mine to control.
The system registers elevated anomaly probability. It waits for orders. Greg withdraws his hand. The feeds continue to run. Lyric steps lightly, each movement intentional. Thread hums beneath her skin. The key pulses in Alara's pocket. Shadows hesitate, reform, encircle, but she flows with them. She ducks a strike, pivots, and uses the thread to redirect momentum, throwing one shadow into another. Mist swirls, dissipating. She spins, strikes with precision, each motion measured, each decision premeditated.
It's not just survival. It's understanding, reading, controlling.
A larger shadow feints left. Key pulses sharply, thread warns. She sidesteps, letting the shadow collide with another. Both collapse into mist. She stands, breathing slow, every muscle alert, eyes scanning, waiting. Shadows regroup, cautious now, unsure.
Still standing and watching.
Greg's chair eases back as his weight settles into it, the mechanisms compensating automatically. The system reads him as calm. It's wrong. Across the overlays, the shadow's signatures thin, stretch, then condense again, regrouping behavior. Tactical withdrawal, not retreat. The kind that precedes adaptation. The key and the thread continue their synchronized pulse. Perfect phase alignment. Greg's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. He flags the data stream, runs it twice, then a third time. No artifact, no misread. For the first time in recorded oversight, a mark and a key are not merely compatible. They are coherent.
That harmony. That's not survival. That's authorship.
He leans forward, forearms resting on his knees, studying Lyric's silhouette framed against fractured terrain. Every variable says she should be overwhelmed by now. Every historical model says the shadows should have escalated. Instead, they hesitate. One shadow edge blurs at the boundary of her projected path. A single microsecond of indecision. A flaw. A crack in a system that was never meant to question itself. Greg catches it instantly. He tags the frame, expands it, studies the moment where momentum dies.
That's not fear. That's doubt.
His fingers still on the console. Not tapping now. Waiting.
Predators don't fail because they're weaker. They fail because they're forced to think. The hunt has begun, but she's not running.
He rises in one smooth motion. The coat brushes the deck, a quiet, deliberate sound that carries more intent than volume. He stands tall before the wall of feeds, a man framed by other people's battles. The overlays shift again. The shadows hold their distance. Not gone, not advancing. Learning. Greg's eyes harden, not with anger, but calculation sharpened by something new. Respect. Or the closest thing he allows himself to feel.
Run, and I'll catch you. Fight, and I'll end you. Keep walking.
A pause. Fractional. Heavy.
And I'll decide whether the world can afford you.
The key pulses. The thread answers. The system logs it as a synchronized anomaly. Greg overrides the label. He renames it manually. Status, convergence event. On the ridge, Lyric remains still. Breath steady. Eyes tracking the invisible shifts in the dark. She doesn't chase. She doesn't retreat. She holds.
This isn't the end. It's the line they don't know they've crossed.
The wind moves again, soft, cautious, as if the land itself is unsure which side it's on. Deep within the fold architecture, Greg Gray steps away from the feeds and into a darker corridor of the mobile command. Not retreating. Repositioning. The screens continue to watch without him. The ridge remains quiet. Not peaceful. Poised. The corridor narrows as Greg advances. Not physically, contextually. The fold compresses around him, rewriting distance into pressure. Lights dim, then brighten, then dim again, as if unsure whether he is a subject or an operator. His coat brushes against something that isn't quite wall. It yields, then remembers it was supposed to be solid. The sound echoes anyway. Greg doesn't slow. Latent threads line the corridor like dormant nerves, faint filaments embedded in the architecture. They don't activate. They observe.
Run, and I'll catch you.
The words ripple outward, not as sound alone, but as instruction. The fold records the statement, tags it with probability trees, begins simulating outcomes that end in capture. Silence answers. Not empty. Listening.
Fight, and I'll end you.
The corridor's humdrops half a register. Systems recalibrate around the phrase. Termination logic wakes in distant layers, not yet engaged, but aware it has been named. He stops walking. Not because he must, because he chooses to let the space catch up to him.
But if you keep walking, I'll have to decide whether the world can afford you.
He tilts his head. The darkness ahead folds inward, recursive, like a hallway thinking about becoming a door. The fold responds with a subtle structural shift. Priority layers realign. The system treats the statement as a conditional authorization. Not approval. Not denial. A pending judgment. Greg inhales slowly. The air tastes ionized, sharp with stored outcomes. Possibility residue. The kind that only exists where too many futures have already been calculated and discarded. Somewhere else, far from this corridor, the key pulses in Alara's pocket. Greg does not feel it, but the fold does. A microlag ripples through the architecture, a fractional desync, barely measurable, enough to matter later.
I don't fear the thread. I fear what it chooses.
A shadow slides along the far wall. Not hostile, not friendly, diagnostic. The fold checking its own assumptions. Greg's eyes track it anyway. Choices have consequences, and some cannot be unmade. The words carry less certainty than before. Not doubt. Awareness. He straightens his coat with a single precise motion. Regains the posture of a man who believes the system still belongs to him.
Let her walk. Let her fight. Let her run.
Each phrase triggers a silent branch in the fold's predictive lattice. 3 futures, all unresolved, all expensive.
Because only then will I know if she deserves to survive.
That word, deserves, lingers longer than the others. The corridor stretches. Distance reasserts itself. The fold allows him passage deeper, into layers few operators ever access twice. As he moves, the threads along the walls begin to hum, not activation. Alignment. Behind him, the corridor does not close. It forgets he was ever there. Somewhere on a fractured ridge, Lyric still stands. Somewhere in a pocket of fabric and fate, the key still pulses. Somewhere between them, the fold recalculates what control means. Greg Gray disappears into shadow. Not as an ending, as a variable. The quiet breaks, not with sound, but with absence. One moment, the wind presses against Lyric's face. The next, it's gone. Not stilled. Removed. The night air feels edited. Lyric's breath fogs, then doesn't. The vapor vanishes mid-exhale, sliced clean as if the atmosphere itself has been told to step aside. The thread tightens along her wrist. Not in alarm. In recognition. Lyric doesn't reach for it. She lets it reach for her.
That's new.
The fractured terrain ahead shimmers, not with light, but with priority. Reality reorders itself in thin, geometric seams. The ridgeline redraws by inches. Angles that weren't there a moment ago now insist they always were. The shadows don't advance. They withdraw. Not afraid. Yielding. Something else has entered the field. Lyric takes one slow step forward. The ground firms beneath her boot, stabilizing too quickly. Artificial compliance. The land acting like it's under instruction.
Lyric, the key just spiked. Not danger. Like, it's sinking to something that isn't you.
Lyric tilts her head, eyes tracking a distortion in the air 30 meters ahead. Nothing visible. Everything intentional. Lyric, then whatever it is, it's closer to me than to you. The distortion tightens. Not a portal. Not a tear. A presence arriving without announcing itself. The thread hum deepens. Not louder. Heavier.
Greg didn't send this to watch.
The temperature drops, not cold. Precise. Heat drains in clean lines, as if measured and removed. Then, footprints appear in the dust. One by one. No body. No shadow attached. Just compression. Weight without form. The shadows retreat further, dissolving into the terrain, abandoning territory they've never yielded before. Lyric stance shifts. Not defensive. Anchored.
So this is his next variable.
The footprints stop 10 meters away. The air thickens. A silhouette begins to form, not fully. Just enough for the mind to accept that something is standing there. It doesn't speak. It doesn't rush. It waits. Lyric meets the empty space where its face should be.
You're not here to kill me. You're here to measure me.
The silhouette tilts, an acknowledgement of processing, not agreement. The thread pulses. The key answers. For the first time, Lyric feels something press back against both. Not resistance. Assessment.
Lyric, I don't like this. This isn't shadow tech. It's not fold standard either.
Good. Then it can make mistakes.
The silhouette shifts. Reality tightens. A low-frequency tone hums through the ridge, not a sound you hear. A condition you feel. The first move isn't an attack. It's a test. Gravity increases by a fractional margin around Lyric alone. Not enough to crush. Enough to see if she bends. Lyric exhales. Lets her knees flex. Lets the thread take some of the load, but not all. She stays upright. The presence pauses. Recalculates.
Yeah, you're not built for restraint either.
The air releases slightly. Not retreat. Acknowledgement. Somewhere deep in the fold, systems register data they weren't designed to interpret. For the first time, whatever Greg unleashed does not report certainty. It reports. Inconclusive. Lyric's eyes narrow.
Your turn's over.
She takes one step forward. The ground does not resist. It adapts. Lyric's step lands, and for a heartbeat, the world hesitates. Not time. Authority. The ground accepts her weight, then subtly recalculates around it, as if uncertain which set of rules should apply. The thread along her wrist emits a low, controlled resonance, not defensive, not aggressive. Declarative. The silhouette 10 meters out sharpens by degrees. Still no face. No edges that quite resolve. A form defined by the way space refuses to occupy the same place.
Lyric, something just dropped off my scopes. Not cloaked. Not jammed. Gone.
It didn't disappear. It stopped being where the system expects things to be.
The presence shifts. Not closer. Better aligned. The pressure changes. Gravity normalizes. Instead, sound dampens in a tight radius around Lyric. Her footsteps would make no noise here. Neither would a scream. A quiet field. A laboratory. The presence is learning which variables matter.
Greg sent you to learn how to beat me.
The thread pulses once, soft. Not challenge. Invitation.
Bad call.
The silhouette raises what might be an arm. The air along its path compresses, visible as a faint refraction. Not a strike. A scan. Lyric feels it move across her, not touching skin, but probability. Measuring reaction thresholds. Predicting how she would move if forced. She does nothing. Lets the scan finish. The thread dampens her instinct to flinch. Not suppressing. Teaching her to hold still inside motion. The presence pauses again. That makes 3 pauses. 3 is not efficient.
Lyric, it just fed something back into the fold. Not data, more like a question.
She shifts her weight just slightly. Not to dodge. To change the equation. The scan field stutters. Not much. Enough.
You don't like when your models drift.
The silhouette flickers. For a fraction of a second, its outline doubles. 2 possible positions overlapping before resolving into one. Desync. A mistake. The first real one.
There it is.
The thread tightens, not to strike, but to anchor her choice. Lyric steps forward again, closing the distance by 2 meters. The quiet field ripples. The presence reacts, not with force, with correction. The air thickens in front of her, forming a resistance plane. Not a wall. A suggestion. Don't advance. Lyric stops. Not because she can't push through, because she wants to see what it does next.
Show me what you're allowed to do.
The resistance plane holds, then weakens. Not by her force, by its own recalibration. It is learning that she is not behaving like expected prey.
Lyric, this thing isn't running combat protocols.
I know. It's running evaluation.
The presence lowers its arm-like shape. The quiet field relaxes slightly. Not trust. Reclassification. Somewhere deep in fold architecture, a flag flips. Target status. Unresolved variable. Lyric exhales slowly.
That's the first crack. If you're here to decide something, then you should probably stop pretending you're invisible.
The silhouette does not fully reveal itself, but it stabilizes. Edges sharpen. Density increases. Not a monster. Not a machine. Something in between. Something designed to be neither seen nor mistaken. The ridge remains silent. The shadows do not return. The test is not over. But the rules have changed. The sky lightens by a fraction, just enough to outline the silhouette with a dim, gray suggestion of form. Not light. Permission. The presence stands more fully now. Still faceless. Still wrong to look at directly. But they're in a way that refuses to be ignored. Lyric feels the change before she sees it. The thread loosens. Not because danger is gone, because the equation has shifted from survival to negotiation.
You don't step out of hiding unless you're allowed to decide something.
Lyric, I'm getting partial structure now. It's not shadow class, not fold native either. It's like a verdict engine.
That tracks.
The presence tilts its head again, more clearly this time. A gesture borrowed from observation of humans, not instinct. A learned effect, which means it has been watching. Not just her. Everyone. The air between them tightens, not with force, but with definition. The space becomes a boundary, a table without furniture, a place where outcomes are weighed. A low resonance rolls outward, not sound, but designation. The fold around them marks the interaction as significant. No alarms. No intervention. Even Greg's systems, far away, hesitate to intrude.
So this is what he built to decide if I'm worth letting live. You're not here to fight me. You're here to decide what I become.
She meets where its eyes would be. The presence does not deny it. It does something worse. It confirms. A faint shift in local probability. Futures narrowing. Not collapsing, being ranked. Lyric feels it like pressure behind her eyes. Not pain. Awareness of paths she could take. Violent ones. Quiet ones. Sacrificial ones. Ruthless ones. It is testing not her strength. Her direction.
Greg thinks control is about catching, ending, or allowing. He never learned the fourth option.
The thread hums, not defensive. Expressive. It carries her intent outward without turning it into a weapon.
You want to know if I'll become what he expects. It won't.
She steps one half step closer. Not enough to be a threat. Enough to be inside its evaluation radius. The presence reacts, not with force. With recalculation. For the first time, Lyric feels it struggle, not physically. Conceptually. Her answer does not fit a clean outcome.
It just branched. Hard. Like it found a future it didn't model.
The silhouette sharpens again. Subtle lines of structure become visible. Frameworks, containment geometry, Logic scaffolds wrapped in something that resembles a body. A machine designed to make moral decisions without calling them that. A judge that doesn't know it's judging.
You weren't built to meet someone who refuses your categories. You can tell him whatever you want. But if you're really here to decide, then you should know this. I'm not his variable.
She lifts her wrist slightly. The thread glows, soft, controlled, undeniable. She locks eyes with the empty space again. The resonance spikes, just a fraction. Not hostile. Alert. The presence steps back half a pace. Not retreat. Repositioning. Somewhere deep in the fold, Greg Gray's systems flag an anomaly. Evaluation loop detected verdict, delayed. For the first time since he unleashed it, the thing he built does not return a clean answer. It returns, conflicting outcome paths. The ridge holds its breath. The sky brightens another fraction. This is no longer a test. It is the beginning of a negotiation the system was never meant to have.
You think you've unraveled the worst this city has to offer, but tonight proved you're only scratching the surface. There are threads we haven't pulled yet, and when we do, everything changes. Stay sharp, because the next move isn't going to wait for anyone, or risk missing everything.